Obviously, this is a remake of a 30-year-old movie, so I don't think a lot of you are going to care about spoilers. That being said, I am issuing a spoiler warning because there are some things about this movie that are done differently, so if you want to go in with a bit of a surprise, this is your early warning. Now, I love this director, Rob Marshall. I thought he did Into the Woods and Mary Poppins. Those are pretty good. Now, those movies, they aren't fantastic. They're watchable. I have a good time with them. This is by far his best movie as far as his Disney musicals go. Again, not perfect, but this is the one I feel that he tried the hardest, for the most part. I have a few issues that I will bring up soon, but I am going to talk about the good first. So, I am also going to be comparing the two versions of the animated and live action because some things in this version were done better, and there are some things I feel probably could have been left out completely or maybe done differently. And one of the big differences was a difference that I was fine with. In the original film, all of Ariel's sisters have names that start with A. But in this, they're named after the 7 Seas, or have names that are reminiscent of having the 7 Seas. And also, each sister is a different race. One's white, one's Asian, there's another one besides Ariel who's black. Makes sense. Triton is Poseidon. He's a Greek god. And if you know anything about Greek mythology, you know Greek gods are not monogamous. It makes sense for him to have daughters from different mothers. Halle Bailey kills it as Ariel. Her voice is amazing. And, surprisingly, Melissa McCarthy gives a really good performance as Ursula. And I don't like Melissa McCarthy in anything. I find her annoying. And I was really cringe when they said, oh, we're going to get Melissa McCarthy as Ursula. I was like, ugh, it's just going to be 2 hours of her doing fat jokes. What were you thinking? But no, she disappears into the role as Ursula. I completely forgot it was her. I saw Ursula. I didn't see Melissa McCarthy. Much like how when Will Smith plays the genie in Aladdin, she took the base of what was in the original, but also made it her own. She does that here. She absolutely kills it during her version of Poor Unfortunate Souls. And it also fixes one of the plot holes in the original. So in the original, Ariel signs a contract, which means she knows how to write. So why not just write down, hey, I'm the one that rescued you. Here's what you need to do to save me. No, in this version, they change it. Ariel in this version makes a blood oath. She doesn't write her name. She takes a scale from her tail and, basically blood oaths herself to Ursula, which is a lot better, but that makes more sense. That means that there are still a few plot inconsistencies with this version. Now, the beginning of this movie is sailors talking about how we need to be aware of the mermaids because they've been luring sailors to their deaths. There's this old sailors' legends going around about mermaids luring sailors to death. There's their siren songs. All except for Eric, who doesn't believe the stories. That's an interesting way of changing it up, except 20 minutes later, when Ariel first sees Eric, they're singing the Fathoms Below song with none of the lyrics change. So they're singing the praises of the mermaids, but yet also you just issued a warning about the mermaids 20 minutes ago. So personally, I think it would have been more interesting if they used the Fathoms Below song, but they had changed the lyrics to serve more as a warning. Making it so the sailors fear the mermaids, though, that also gives a nice parallel to Ariel and Eric. Because Ariel is told the humans are bad, but she refuses to believe it. Eric is told that mermaids are bad, but also doesn't believe it. Townsfolk are superstitious about the mermaids because there's been a ton of shipwrecks. And later on, when Ariel is exploring Eric's castle, she sees that Eric collects things related to mermaids and the sea, just like how she collects things about the human world. That was a nice way of making it feel like a real relationship instead of just something that was rushed into. Also, Eric also gets his own I Want song, and the way it's done reminded me a lot of the Beast's song Evermore from the live-action Beauty and the Beast. That was a fantastic song. And also, Ursula in this version is Triton's sister, meaning Ariel's aunt. That gives her a personal vendetta against them both, and makes her motivations more similar to Scar. She wants to overthrow her brother the king and take over the kingdom. Awesome way of kind of expanding that villain too. But like I said, the film still has a few issues. One being, the film is live action, so as a result, characters like Sebastian, Scuttle, and Flounder, they don't look the best. That's kind of the same problem the Lion King had, where you can't really express the emotion very well. Flounder looks just really unsettling when he looks directly at the camera. Sebastian, not a lot of expression there. Scuttle, a lot of expression. Okay, that's an issue. Also, the Under the Sea song, not as energetic in this version. The melody and lyrics are fine. The performance of it is fine. The visuals, however, not as interesting. Javier Bardem also gives a very mixed performance. It's not as bad as his performance in The Villain of Pirates of the Caribbean. I still think it could have been done better, though. And I like Lin-Manuel Miranda. I think he's entertaining, and I know he's a huge fan of Alan Menken. He's such a fan of Alan Menken, he named his son Sebastian. But his musical style for the new songs he wrote does not work with this. because not only does he write a rap song for The Little Mermaid, he gives that rap song to Scuttle, who is played by Awkwafina, who is annoying. She is annoying in everything. I didn't like her in Raya. I didn't like her in Shang-Chi. I didn't like her in Crazy Rich Asians. I don't like her in anything. She's annoying. Her whole shtick seems to be if I yell, it's funny. No, it's not. It's like when you give Iago a song or Return of Jafar. That was another show. That's the same thing. It was really annoying. And also, it's inconsistent because Ariel at the beginning, when she sees the fork of the ding-dong, is like, oh, I don't know what this is. But I think Scuttle will. He knows everything. He. But Scuttle is clearly voiced by a woman. And it's not like in cartoons where you get a grown woman to voice a little boy. That makes sense. No, it's clearly a grown woman's voice coming out of this character. And yet Scuttle is always referred to as he. So, yeah, that didn't make any sense at all. That was just weird. But also, like I said, he gives Ariel a song about how she's on land for the first time. That's a great song. I think that Ariel's new song, when she's on land for the first time, great song, and it sort of reminded me of How Far I'll Go from Moana, which Lin-Manuel Miranda also wrote. But I do think it would have been more effective if the song had just been cut out and they just do score instead. Song itself, great on its own, great to listen to on a soundtrack, but the way it's executed in the movie, I don't think worked very well. I think maybe they should have just let Halle Bailey's facial expressions do the communicating, because she has no voice at this point. This is after Ariel sacrifices her voice to Ursula. Take advantage of that character's limitation. Let her facial expressions do all the communicating instead of just having these lyrics that are in her internal monologue say, this is how I'm feeling, these are my thoughts. Like, okay. That didn't work for me. Another issue, Ursula turns into a human to trick Eric into thinking she's the one who rescued him, just like in the original. Except when she turns into a human, she's white. Now look, I know Eric didn't get a good look at Ariel because his vision was blurry, but even when your vision is blurry, you can still tell differences in skin tone. And I know he's under a spell, but come on, don't make him that dumb. It's very clearly not the black woman who rescued him. This woman is clearly white. Why do you think it's her? So, overall, though, I do think this was a nice new version of the film. It was different enough that it didn't just feel like a beat for beat of the original, like a lot of the remakes didn't really try. And despite not all the changes working, I still think it's one of the better live-action remakes. This film is a siren whose spell I fell under. I do think it's worth seeing it. For me, it gets an A-, 9 out of 10, and 4 out of 5 stars.